Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. So we are picking back up from John 15, looking at verse 5 to begin with. And Jesus, again, this is him talking to his disciples. This is right before his passion. So this is that night of the Last Supper. And he says to them, "Dwell in me, and I will dwell in you. Live in me, and I will live in you. Just as no branch can bear fruit of itself without abiding in or being vitally united to the vine, neither can you bear fruit unless you abide in me." He tells us that abiding in Jesus is being united to him. We are in union with Jesus Christ. We are vitally united to him. It is that union that produces growth. Apart from or disconnected from the vine, the branch has nothing to sustain it, nothing to support it, and nothing to hold it up under the weight of the fruit. You know, that the vine connected to the branch, that's what sustains it, that's what holds it. There's also nothing to produce fruit because the fruit comes from the vine or through the vine to the branch. The branch in this example, in this discourse, is you and me. We are the branches, the hands and feet of Jesus. We are a conduit for the vine to produce through. Fruit does not grow directly on a vine. I remember when Dustin and I lived out in our first home, we would walk the golf course and there were these amazing grapevines behind one of the houses, and the gentleman was outside one day and we talked to him about the vines and he told us how he cared for them and how he planted them, and there were two vines and they one on each side, and they completely covered and ran along the entire length of his fence. Well, of course, that summer we got a couple of grapevines because I had a grapevine growing up. We had one in our backyard, and I love fruit, I love flowers, I love growth, I love watching all of that seasons and time. So anyway, and it would be pretty green on our back fence. So we bought a couple of grapevines and we ran them on our fence. Of course, the first year they were so very small. The second year, we could not believe how much they grew and how much they covered our fence. And of course, the vines ran, and then off of the vines were branches and leaves, and that's where the fruit was. The fruit did not grow on the main vine of the plant of the grapevine. And so it was the branches that the vine produced through that carried or that held the fruit. But the vine was the source of life. It was a source of support. It was sustaining, and it is what provided everything that the branches would need in order to produce fruit. Jesus is our vine. He is our life source. He is the support, the sustainer, and the enabler. I was listening to a minister this week, and he was talking about that we are all created to produce. Even in the beginning, you go back to Genesis 1, and God's blessing over Adam and Eve is to be fruitful, multiply, fill up the earth and subdue it, and defining all of those things. But you and I were created to produce, not just to produce children, but to be productive, to be fruit bearers for the kingdom. Jesus produces through us. Now this is key. So the branches are supposed to produce the fruit. It's their purpose, and it's our purpose too. But I want you to think about the fruit for a moment. If you just, most of the time, now some people may be able to do this, I'm not one of them, but if you just walked by a tree or walked by a vine or some kind of plant, would you know immediately what it was? Even flowers. Would you know by the leaf what the flower was? No, probably not. But the fruit is a visible manifestation of the type of vine or seed sown. So even though, you may see a tree, like of course I'm going to look at our pecan tree out here. Even though you may see the leaves and it's a beautiful tree and it's established and all the things, I know it's a pecan tree because I see the pecans on it, because it produces a pecan. Or tulips or lilies. Like I know which flowers out in my yard are that are coming up are lilies because I know the flower. But if you don't, I know the leaf, but if you don't know the leaf, you wouldn't know until the flowers came up, which the flower would be considered the fruit in those types of plants. But I digress. My point is that the fruit is the visible manifestation. It tells the world what type of plant we are, what type of vine we are. And I want my fruit to point back to my Father. And I'm sorry we went a little bit long today, but we'll pick up here again tomorrow. I will see you then. Bye, y'all.